That's one of the things I'm looking for out of an RPG, especially if I were to create one. I really would like I want it to be low stress on the game master as well, because if I don't want the game master to have to spend forever setting things up. Now, some game masters love that. Like when I was playing with Lou at the physical table, I mean, he printed all kinds of things. He created fantastic physical tables for us. He also we had the, on the channel, I created the table with him, the digital table, where the digital TV for the table that we could put on the table. And then, he could bring up maps that had sound effects and animations, and he did all that. And then we played online as well. We used, I forget what type of software to run our online games, but he put a lot of effort into that. And I know that it can take a lot of time. But on the other hand, if you want I want somebody to be able to run a really cool adventure with having the idea for the story and the setting and what's going on, with really having little mechanical prep. And I was worried about that with the digital tabletop stuff as well. That was one of my things that I was thinking about, is that, as easy as digital things are in some regard, because you can, obviously collaborate over the internet, and you don't have distance and you don't have driving and things like that, the manipulation of objects in the physical world is still much easier, and there's that hurdle. So having to set something up that is really complicated, and then also something that is difficult to manipulate, is a lot. We shouldn't be expecting more out of our game masters in a digital environment. And I've heard that complaint, that like, well, what does it take to run an in-person game, especially when COVID was going on and all of that? What does it take to run an in-person game? I was hearing some game masters say that, well, we got a call for more smoke. Thank you. Don't let me forget. We should breathe too. Breathe. And take our sip. Definitely important. But so I was hearing the game masters were saying, hey, if I do an in-person game, it only takes so much to, set up. I can do those really quickly. But when I go online, my players are actually expecting more, to set up like fog of war inside the software and having custom whatevers for, all the individual tokens and the tables, virtual table setup and all of that. And that's not good. The players can only be expecting so much out of the game master. And we certainly don't want, or I don't want, the game master to feel like people are expecting more out of them than they would be if they were meeting at the physical table, or it taking much longer or longer at all to set up. I don't want that. So if we had some way where it was easy, it needs to make everything easy. The digital environment makes some things easy. We don't want it to make other things hard. We want it to be easy. Stray says, I have players that are war gamers at heart and need the grid and terrain. Theater of the mind is where I'm at home. Seems to be a dying talent. Yeah, I don't mind theater of the mind. I mean, that's how we always started and things like that. And all of these, all of the fantastic terrain and the miniatures and the 3D prints and the 3D terrain and stuff like that. I do love that too. There's a place for it. There is a place for it. But, when I'm talking about the experience of the world, that what I really want to do is be able to experience, if I'm the player, I want to feel like I'm in the world. I want to experience like being in Middle Earth or whatever world it is. And, we've talked about on here before, in all things, we can always think about what's the most we could do. We could sit here and fantasize about what is the most that we could do as players or as game masters to run this game. Well, when you start to think about what the most you could possibly do is, you just can go to the moon, in your mind, thinking about all of these. I'm going to have the Dwarven Forge setups, or I'm going to have all this 3D printed. Everything in my game world is going to be represented by these 3D models, and I'm going to have, a specific miniature for every single PC and even NPC in the game. Every time there's a new encounter, I'm going to have just the right miniatures, and they're all going to be painted up, and the room is going to look like this or whatever it is, like a dungeon environment, and I'm going to have the fog machine going, and we're all going to wear costumes, and there's going to be a sound effects generator in the room. When you think about what's the most you can do to invoke the feeling of a world and have a great time at the gaming table, you can always think about, you can go to the moon in your mind, but that's very difficult to do. And then you get depressed because you didn't have or realize this thing that was in your mind. Much better to think about is what's the least you can do. I want to, let's say, have a fantastic adventure in Middle Earth. I want to have, I've got this adventure in mind. I want people to experience Lothlorien or Mirkwood or the Shire or the city of Dol Amroth or whatever it is. That's what I want to happen. I got this great idea. We're going to have a lot of fun in 2 hours, or whatever time you got, 2 to 3 hours. That's a lot of what people have as far as gaming time. We're going to hit that running. I'm not going to spend 4 weeks setting it up.